Hello chess friends and welcome to Jozarov chess channel and welcome to an incredible game of the Computer Blitz Chess Championship in 2023. We have here Stockfish 15 against another top engine Igel in a beautiful Sicilian defense game, and the cool part about this game that I'll show you now is that Stockfish will find really a strange way to secure the king, because many times we play kingside castling, queenside castling. In some blocked out pawn structures in the center of the board, you can also leave the king in the center for a long time. In some occasions you move the king maybe to f1, maybe you move it just one square to the queen side. But in this game, Stockfish will try to secure the king with the king walk on g4. So really wild stuff. So Stockfish will secure the king on this square on the board, which is really amazing, really a rare case to play with the king. So in my opinion, really a beautiful game here played by Stockfish against this other top engine Igel. So let's see now the game. Stockfish with the white pieces open with the move e4. We have now the move c5 by Igel, the Sicilian. Knight to f3, d6, d4, c takes d4, knight to d4, the open game. Knight to f6, knight to c3. We have now the move a6, and now after bishop to e2, here Stockfish is preparing g4, g5, this common flank attack in these types of structures. So we have now the move e6. This is now the so-called Scheveningen structure, flexible structures with ideas to play d5 or e5, or if necessary in some occasions. So here Stockfish continues with normal development, bishop to e3, bishop to e7, and now comes this idea, g4, g5. Igel castles, we have g5, knight to d7, and now after move f4, Stockfish continues now with the pressure on the king side, launching this beautiful flank attack. So here knight to c5 played by Igel, rook to g1, queen to a5, with the idea of course to play knight to e4 and then simply picking up the pawn, because you cannot take because of the pin by the queen against the knight. So here Stockfish plays a very important defensive move, knight to b3, kicking away the queen, queen to c7, and now after knight to c5, d takes c5. Stockfish defended here this position, I think, in a beautiful way, because Stockfish created now a symmetrical pawn structure. What I mean about a symmetrical pawn structure is of course that we have now a 3 versus 3 situation here on the queen side, but also a 4 versus 4 situation on the king side. So it's not such a dynamic position anymore. When the position was like this, when the knights were not traded off here so far in the center of the board, then there was always this threat to create a breakthrough with the move d5. So actually black in many Sicilians is slightly better always in the center of the board, because of this 2 versus 1 pawn majority of pawns in the center. So black is hoping many times to make some kind of progress here in the center. So as I said, very important defensive idea, knight to c5, d takes c5, and now Stockfish locks now the king side, but also liberates a very important square for the knight. Notice there are some opportunities, some tactical ideas with knight to e4 and maybe knight to f6, because if the g file clears somehow, then of course the king could be endangered by this beautiful rook activity. Here Igel continued with this movement, rook to d8, hitting the queen, and now comes a very tricky move by Stockfish, bishop to d3. Many of us, I think, would play c4 immediately, but this would be a beautiful, stunning trap, because look at this, what happens. Bishop to h7, the Greek gift you have here, king to h7, queen to h5, and now you have to step back, and now comes the dirty part. As we said, knight to e4 with the preparation to play this dirty, really sick idea with the move knight to f6. You could maybe try knight to c6, getting new defenders into the game. Knight to f6 wins the game on spot, because look at this, how are you going to defend the checkmate on g7? You can maybe sacrifice something, but you just prolong the game. So maybe in this position you could also try knight to d7, controlling further the square knight to f6, but now with g6 actually you get destroyed. Look at this, after f takes g6, queen to g6, you can maybe try bishop to f8, controlling further the g7 square, but now look at this, queenside castling. This would be a devastating attack, of course, if Igel would have played this move c4, because you played maybe something like c3, but now again a similar tactic, rook takes d7, getting rid of the key defender on f6, and now again the knight jumps on this beautiful square. We have now the royal fork, and if you play king to h8, it's not the case that you want to pick up the queen. We want to actually deliver checkmate here on h7. So you see with the move bishop to d3, already dirty idea, so that's why Igel had to play the move g6, very important defensive move. But now Stockfish gets out of this potential attack on the d file. Now c4 would be of course a serious threat. So knight to c6 by Igel, we have h4, we have knight to b4, hitting the bishop on d3, bishop to e4, knight to d5, and now queen to h3, connecting the queen to the bishop on e3. If you play, for instance, here knight to c3 immediately, then of course you have some problems still. You didn't solve everything, because after b takes c3, h4, h5 is coming, rook to h1, so still there are these tensions on the h file. That's why, first of all, what Igel had to do is to get a new defender into the game. So it's not time just to rush with knight to c3, because still you have so many problems on the h file. So we have now h5. Stockfish continues with the plan. We have a bishop to g7, king to f2. Stockfish secures the king so far. Wants to play maybe a little bit more freely with the queen on the h file, because the bishop is still loose here on e3. In a continuation, bishop to d7 by Igel, getting a new piece into the game. Normal development. H take g6, h take g6. You see now the h file is already open. We have rook to h1, and now knight to e3. Here Igel deflects now a little bit the queen from the attack on the h file, but still, of course, Stockfish has other possibilities. The queen will eventually come into the game again on h3. So here bishop to c6 played by Igel. We have bishop takes c6, queen to c6, and now queen to g3. Stockfish goes with the king on this beautiful square. Actually, when you think about it harder, it's a good choice, because the game is, I think, not so dangerous for white on the king side. Actually, the only tactical threats that I see in the game are only on the h file. So this is simply something that bothers black in the continuation of the game. But still, if black, for instance, defends this position, if the game reaches maybe the endgame stage, then black has also some good chances, especially on the d file. Maybe when the bishop gets on this side of the board, it can be used maybe into the attack. So far, black needs now to defend just this checkmate threat on the h file. But if that happens, then as I said, it could be a good game also for black. So here rook to d4 played by Igel. We have queen to f3. Here Stockfish sensed that maybe there could be some complications around the queen. So here Stockfish hopes to trade off the queens, simplifying the game. But now Igel plays a very interesting queen to b6, attacking the pawn on b2. If you play queen to f3, then actually after king to f3, rook to d8, that probably black would play, white has always this resource. And notice this knight on e4 move is controlling the square d2, and this square d2 you have to control if you don't want to allow, of course, your opponent some activities with the rook. If the rooks of blacks here come on the second rank, then it could be dangerous. But now with knight to e4, basically everything can be solved, but also it comes with an attack against the pawn on c5. For instance, you play b6, and now the king can come closer to the rook. You play maybe something like a5, but now this would be the very important defensive move, I think. Rook to h2, rook to d2, trading off at least one of these rooks on the d file, because the main strength I think that black has here in the position is, of course, the rook battery. And with this maneuver, I think white will solve every positional problem and still has this powerful knight, and eventually maybe has also the king a little bit closer to the pawns. Maybe this pawns afterwards can be endangered by the rook activity, by the knight activity, also of course by the king activity. So in a potential endgame, white would be slightly better because of this more centralized king towards the queen side. So here, that's why after queen to f3, Igel didn't dare to simplify the game, try to stay with the queens on the board, because Igel probably calculated that the king still could be endangered on g3, because it's really an unnatural position for the king by white. So here rook to b1 protecting the pawn, queen to c7, rook to e1, we have rook from a to d8, knight to e4, queen to a5, and now rook to f1. A beautiful move here by Stockfish 15, because actually the problem here is that you cannot pick up the pawn on a2. This would be a suicide for black. Look at this, what happens, knight to f6. You can maybe step back to f8 because you don't want to take, of course. Bishop takes f6 is again suicide, because there is always the problem on the h file, so this is not working. So that's why after move knight to f6, maybe you step back. But look at this, the queen is coming into the game. You play maybe something like rook to d2, and now after queen to c7, the serious threat is always queen to c5. You can maybe defend this, but I'm not sure about this position. Look at this, rook is coming into the game, so in my opinion, a devastating game again for black. So here after move rook to f1, Igel played queen to b6, again targeting the pawn on b2. Again Stockfish defends it with rook to b1, king to f8, and now rook to h7. This is very important what Stockfish is doing here. Stockfish is not allowing the king to escape somewhere here towards the center of the board. paralyzes a little bit the king to the defense of the bishop, because if you play now king to g8 again, look at this, what happens. We have this idea, queen to h1, you play maybe something like queen to c7, and now actually this is working. Look at this, queen to rook to g7, king to g7, queen to h6, and after king to g8, knight to f6 wins the game on spot. So you see, beautiful move it was, beautiful attacking move, rook to h7, really paralyzing a little bit the king, also paralyzing here a little bit the bishop, so the rook is holding now the whole king side here in black's position. So here c4 was played by Igel. We have knight to f6. You cannot of course play something like bishop to f6 again, because after g takes f6 and queen to h1 again, you're getting some serious checkmate threats. Sorry, I just moved the... Okay, sorry about that. So you see, after g takes f6 again, queen to h1, rook to h8 is already a checkmate threat. So this is not an option here for black. So after move knight to f6, here in the game, rook to d5 was played by the Igel engine, offering finally maybe the rook for the knight, because black doesn't want to tolerate this annoying knight on f6. But actually look what happens. For instance, even if you play something like c3, if you try maybe to make progress in this way, actually there is always this threat of rook to g7 immediately. This is also something that should be considered in the game, because after king to g7 you have this one, queen to h1, and for instance the rook maybe comes on the h file. Now you have the stunning queen takes h8. Look at this, really wild stuff. After king to h8, rook to h1, now play a couple of checks with the rook, and after rook to e8, actually this would be a monstrous, really immortal checkmate sequence. Really wild stuff. So you see, after move c3, there is always this threat of rook to g7. So really amazing stuff. So as I said, let's go back, let's see this tactical sequence again. Queen to h1, rook to h8, sacrificing the queen, and now the rook is coming into the game. Really amazing. So after knight to f6, here rook to d5 was played by the Igel engine. We have now king to g4 by Stockfish, securing the king even on a better square here. The king cannot be endangered here. Really wild stuff. We have now the move c3. We have queen to c3, rook to b5, rook to h1, rook to c5, and now after queen to a3, the rook is pinned. The rook cannot move, so that's why after queen to c6, rook to d1 here, Stockfish is hoping to simplify the game now and going maybe into favorable endgame. So we have queen to g2, queen to g3, we have queen takes g3, king takes g3, and now the problem is the tension on the d file. Igel has to step back, and after c3, we're slowing down the pace down of the game, because Stockfish has now extra pawn, has still this powerful knight in the center. We have seen bishop takes f6 doesn't make so much sense, so it's, I think, devastating. If you pick up the knight, there's still the space advantage that white has here. White has an extra pawn, has a beautiful rook activity, so it's of course still a completely winning endgame here for white. So king to e7 was finally played by Igel. Finally the king can breathe, but it's a little bit too late now. After rook to d8, rook to d8, knight to e4, very important move again, controlling this very important square d2. If the rook comes, of course, as we said, on the second rank, then it could be dangerous. So knight to e4, nice defensive move. So we have a5, king to f3, the king gets closer. We have rook to c8, b4, a takes b3 en passant, a takes b3, bishop to f8, rook to d8, and after rook to d1, pardon me, after rook to d8, knight to d6 played by Stockfish, really nice centralizing move. Rook to b8, protecting now the pawn. We have b4, b5, we have knight to e4, rook to c8, and now this rook is coming into the game. There's no good defense against rook takes b5, so Stockfish will simply grab another pawn here. So king to d7, rook to b5, king to c8. Now the whole position is falling apart for black. Now we here white simply push the pawn, and after knight to d6, notice that also now the pawn on f7 is hanging. Even if you pick up now the knight on d6, then of course we would connect maybe even 3 pass pawns here on the queen side and in the center of the board. So it's game over for black for sure. So after knight to d6, we have king to d7, rook to a6, bishop to c5, rook takes a7, bishop to a7. Now Stockfish grabs another pawn here after bishop to c5, knight to h8, king to c7, knight to g6 here. Stockfish grabs every pawn, pushes simply this pawns further, has now these 2 connected passers now on the king side. bishop to c5, knight to g5, now simply pushing g7, knight to e6, grabbing the last pawn in the position, bishop to b6, and now after promotion, after a couple of more moves here, black got checkmated. So really wild game, I think. Incredible attack by Stockfish 15. Didn't even castle, didn't even complicate things too much. Played king to f2, king to g3, king to h4. Played this beautiful outpost on f6, really devastating attacks you have witnessed here. I think there were always this tactical opportunities, this immortal checkmate ideas that were present through the whole game, which kept the tension in White's attack. As I said, really an outstanding here gameplay by Stockfish 15. So, okay, I hope that you enjoyed the game. I really enjoyed it a lot. Interesting ideas of the Sicilian for sure. If you want to see more brutal attacks like this, check out my Common Chess Games Play by Computer series. Here's the link of our whole playlist, and if you like this content, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. See you soon with some more videos, and chess is the best, of course.